Guess what? Television is television again. Everything that's old is new again. We're talking about The Pitt, which is a brand new series on Max. I say brand new, but it has some really old school vibes. It comes from the minds that brought you R. Scott Gemmill, John Wells, Noah Wiley's in it, and it is a medical drama only there is something of a little twist. It's in somewhat real time. This isn't 24 real time where every minute and second is kind of represented on screen. In this one, every episode takes place over an hour in the fictional Pittsburgh Trauma Medical Hospital. There are 15 episodes and it chronicles 15 consecutive hours in that emergency room, which in itself is a fantastic conceit. But what makes this show truly fucking great, and it is truly fucking great, is the character work. I haven't seen writing like this on TV in a very long time, since the glory days of network television. And let me explain what I mean, right? Within the first 10 to 15 minutes of the first hour. Now, the first hour of the show takes place between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. in the Pit. Within the first 15 minutes of that episode, we are introduced to a barrage of characters. We are given a little bit of backstory. We are introduced to some conflict. There is tension. There is so much going on. And it isn't introduced in a way where things are explained to you. You are just kind of hinted at the various dynamics that happen across this hospital. And it's enough to keep you hooked into what's going to happen next. It is tremendous writing. When you think about writing as good as this, you think about the pilot of The West Wing, where in that walk and talk that Leo McGarry does at the beginning of that episode, you are introduced to a whole barrage of things that are happening within the West Wing of the White House. The Pit feels like that, and man, it is one of the few shows that I am excited to wait for week on week on week.
Absolutely. I think there's a real mastery with regards to the writing, right? With regards to how the characters are introduced. Nobody is dropped in with a long backstory or exposition about where they're coming from, who they're dating, or what they had for breakfast. It feels like you've just walked into this emergency room. When the surgeon specialist comes through, she just comes through to do her thing and then she leaves. When the head administrator of the hospital comes down to take out Noah Wiley's character, there's no introduction of like, oh, here she comes, here's her full name, she's been here for 12. None of that. These characters come in, they immediately have gravitas, they immediately have baggage, they immediately have backstory without having to tell you, the audience, what their backstory is. And I think all of that works because the writing is so tight, because the acting is so good. Even the three new interns, is it 3 or 4? 3.
I think there are 3 new interns.
Even the 3 new interns who come in, that's the very standard way of introducing an audience to a new show, right? You bring in new, fresh pair of eyes. They become the audience's point of view almost. They give the show a reason to introduce a character's backstory on screen with dialogue. But here, they don't even do that because you're in the emergency room of a hospital. You don't have time to stop and take names and numbers and details and backstory. You just hit the ground running, and this show hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know it was going to be an hour per episode, like an hour of real time in this shift. Episodes 1 and 2 dropped at the same time. When I saw episode 2 start up, I was like, oh shit, this is what we're doing. And I think that's what I needed. I think that's what I needed for it to be a new take on what is essentially a very run-of-the-mill setting for a show, right? This isn't the first time we've seen a medical show. And yet that one shift thing per season did enough for me to sort of keep me hooked and interested.
Okay, so there are a couple of things that make this very different from your standard streaming fare. First of all, the episode count is more than usual. This one is 15 episodes, which in this day and age makes up for 2 seasons of your average Netflix show, right? It's usually 8 to 10 episodes long. So the 15 episode count actually feels a lot closer to the 22 episode count of traditional network television. What's interesting about that, for me at least, is that the way they work character into these 15 episodes. So a lot of traditional TV, if you look at Grey's Anatomy, if you look at classic ER or Chicago Hope, all of these medical dramas, yes, there is a medical mystery of the week, or two or three medical mysteries of the week, because there's an A plot, B plot, C plot, etc. Most of it actually centered around these characters. And the character work that we're seeing in the Pit, I feel, is missing in a lot of the stuff that we see come onto streaming. Because streaming concerns itself a lot with plot. It feels like it uses plot and devices to keep people binging, to keep people moving from one episode to the next, because, you know, that's what keeps people coming back. That's what Netflix needs to prove their numbers, etc., etc. And I feel like The Pit is a real throwback because it's really just centered on character. The closest I get to this sort of character work and writing is actually on Apple TV Plus, with a lot of the shows that they put out. And so The Pit for me felt incredibly refreshing by being old school. It's really weird.
But also, I think the way they treat each episode is very interesting because, unlike, like you said, unlike in a traditional workplace drama, right, and a workplace 40 plus minute drama, they would need the A plot, which will be the main case of the week. Then they'll need the B plot, which is normally some personal relationshipy things. And then there's a C plot, which will be the thing that is dealt with across the season, or at least across a couple episodes. Here, you can't do that because this is 1 hour. You cannot jump time to the following week when they've suddenly spent 2 days going through all the tests and them accidentally sleeping with each other or whatever. You don't have that time. You have 60 minutes of a shift. So you have to deal with anything that comes through right then and there, which I love. In the first episode, the introduction of the three junior doctors almost become the B plot. The A plot is dealt with very quickly. There's a couple of cases that come through. They deal with those very quickly. The B plot is the introduction of these new doctors, right? One of them sort of gets a little woozy at the sight of an emergency, and then she gets moved to a different department. Then there's two others who are sort of a bit at loggerheads. So there are all these character moments, while at the same time introducing Noah Wyle's character, introducing all the other senior doctors through those cases that come in through the door. It's just like beautiful writing.
It's also beautifully shot. John Wells uses his signature walk and talk a lot in this show, and that creates a real momentum to the series.
Yeah.
Everything moves. It feels like you're in this emergency room. It's hectic, frenetic, it's kinetic. I love that.
But it never feels rushed, right? It never feels like sure, there are moments when, emergency's coming in, like there's a rush for that moment, but it is dealt with very quickly because it's an ER. They've got the next case, so I have to deal with this. I think Noah Wiley's character says in the first episode, patients pass through here, right? Can we deal with it quickly and then move it along? Can we deal with it quickly and then move it along?
For me, this is a great example of taking a formula that has been tried and tested, like the legal drama, like the police procedural, the hospital drama is a formula that is tried and tested. Every year on network television, on streaming, there are dozens of hospital shows and medical dramas. But there is something about the execution of this which makes it feel incredibly fresh.
Yes.
It also embraces the COVID era in an interesting way. Like, TV shows went one of two ways. They either ignored that COVID ever happened, or they totally went into it, like Shameless, where everyone was wearing masks and living through COVID.
Yeah.
Medical dramas did the same thing, where they addressed COVID, sometimes maybe in an episode or two, addressing certain cases, etc., etc. In this one, Noah Wiley's backstory involves the COVID era. And we still don't know what his trauma is because he's going through some trauma.
Yeah.
And we've seen a couple of flashbacks, but it feels like that's going to play a part. as the day moves on, as everyone gets more and more tired, and the show becomes more and more tense.
In a traditional show where the episodes are told over a couple of days, you can stretch out that drama, right? You can stretch out the tension, you can stretch out the fights, you can sort of plot it out over the course of a 10 episode season. But here, because they have to do it immediately, these characters have to get into each other's faces immediately, and the writers have to be conscious of that. I cannot stress enough how difficult it is to even plot out your story when it all happens in one 15-hour batch. I'm most excited to find out how this show evolves over the course of 15 hours, essentially, 15 episodes.
Same. We didn't get early access, so we're watching it week to week, just like the rest of you, and we highly recommend it. It is so intense. It's some of the best television out there. Before we wrap, though, Bahir, did you hear that there is some behind-the-scenes drama? Did you read about this?
Oh, shit. No, what happened?
So, the estate of Michael Crichton is suing them because Michael Crichton wrote ER, or he wrote the book 5 Patients that ER is based on.
Yes.
The estate of Michael Crichton is suing because they say that this was based on a planned sequel to ER that the estate had not approved. And so therefore, Michael Crichton should be credited as the creator of this show as well.
Wow.
Warner Brothers Television is saying that no, it is a completely different show, but I think it is an ongoing case.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I hope they resolve it, because if they don't, that means season 2 is going to be on hold, right? Because if this thing goes to court, all kinds of things can happen. So
it's that weird thing of like, you want the show to be successful, so you get seasons 2, 3, 4, etc. But at the same time, if it gets successful, you know for a fact the Michael Crichton estate's not going to put this down.
No way. And it has been pretty successful. I mean, I think all of the reviews have just been universal praise.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes has it at 92%.
There you go. Go watch The Pitt. It is streaming on Max. It is absolutely fantastic television.
Don't binge it.
We say this every single time.
We say this every
and you know
single
what?
time.
None of you fucking listen. Just take our word for it. Severance, The Pitt, the upcoming Spider-Man animated series. Don't binge it. Honestly, watch it episode to episode in the order in which it is released. If they release the first 2 episodes at the same time, they want you to watch the first 2 episodes at the same time.
Yeah.
Trust us. It is intense. There's a lot going on. You need the time to process.
Everybody sit down.
Take a breath.
Take a breath. Okay. Here's the thing. Netflix shows do a binge drop because they want you to keep watching. And that's fine. That's okay. However, the shows are never written that good. The shows are not written well enough to survive a week-on-week viewing. And that's fine. That's okay. That's their game. A Netflix binge is like eating too much McDonald's. It's okay. You can do it. You can get through it. You know, you're not going to feel great after you do it, but you'll get the gist of it, right? However, something like this, something like The Pitt, something like Severance, you really got to do it week on week. You got to take the time to savor it. Because if you don't, I can't talk to you about episode 3. Then what are we going to do? I have to wait 6 weeks for your slow ass to catch up?
Just hang around the water cooler. That's what you got to do,
just talk to someone else. You know what I mean? So, do all of us a favor and catch it week to week. Respect the filmmakers.
The Pitt is now streaming on Max. Check it out. Let us know what you think. We are on Instagram, Goggler MY. You can also email us on podcast@goggler.my or send us a WhatsApp on the Goggler hotline 012-524-5208. Thank you so much for listening. This is the Goggler Podcast.